This morning in the series of Tazkiyah pearls, I'm going to talk about talk a little bit more about the Nafs or the soul. I'll talk about a cycle that I think is important for us to understand, and then I'll talk about the Qalb a little bit. And a lot of this series is just explaining some of the basics, and I'm doing it in doses so that it doesn't get too technical and boring or difficult to follow. So, inshallah, you'll bear with me. When we talk about the nafs, there are a few things that's important for us to understand about this nafs in order for us to be able to achieve anything within the path of tazkiyah. You have to understand certain things about this nafs. These givens, or these principles, are what guide us in terms of how we go by purifying, or how we go by trying to strive against it or tame it. And I think probably one of the most important things I'll start out with is the jibillah of the nafs, meaning its nature. The nature of the soul or the nafs is that it comes from the earth, from the soul of the earth, from the soil of the earth. And because of that, it is programmed to want to survive, and it wants to also be the most powerful. Now the reason, it all comes back down to survival really, meaning the fact that it wants to be the strongest, it wants to have the most, it wants to be superior, is based or embedded within the fact that it wants to survive. The way it sees survival is that if it's on the top of the triangle of the food chain, then it has the best chance of surviving and living the longest. And it's always interesting to me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala programmed everything alive to be that way. When you think about life, life wants to live. But you never ask yourself, why does life want to live? Like, where did life get the programming of wanting to live and wanting to survive and wanting to adapt and finding ways to adapt to its environment, and all of the variety that we see of life comes from this basic programming within it. Everything that guides life is just from this. It wants to survive. It wants to be the most comfortable within its environment and to be able to extract as much energy from its environment. This is how it's programmed. So your nafs is programmed that way, to always want to live, and to live as long as possible, and to outlive everyone around, and to put out to expend the least amount of energy, and to take in the highest amount of it. That's how it sees. So every decision that every mammal and every creation on the planet makes is based on this principle, yourself included. And if you understand that jibillah, it becomes easier to comprehend how the nafs does this. So the important piece about that is that the nafs doesn't care how that happens. The nafs has no interest in how it happens. It doesn't care about halal or haram. The means to the nafs means nothing. The only thing it cares for is the outcome. The outcome is your survival. Your nafs is your strongest cheerleader. No one loves you more than your nafs does. No one wants No one wants you to be better than your nafs does. The problem with the nafs is it doesn't know what's best for you. Like, it doesn't know what's best. It is programmed to think that something is best, but it doesn't know if it actually is. Which is why, for example, we will overeat. Not only us, but other mammals will too. Mammals are fit because they live within an ecosystem that works. Right? So they have to work but if you take any animal and you put it and you domesticate it and you offer it food every day, it'll turn fat too. Everything will. Because the nafs doesn't know when to stop. It doesn't have in its programming that, okay, this is enough. No, the more energy, the better. That's how it's programmed. The more energy, the better. The more fat we have, the more likely it is that we will make it through a difficult winter, and others won't. This is how it goes. So it has with the jibillah, with its nature, it has with it the concept of its hadh. There's just three things I need to make sure you understand. Al-hadh meaning, when the nafs is going to make a decision to do something, there has to be something in it for her, or for itself. The soul won't do anything, won't allow you to do anything if there's nothing in it for her. There has to be something in it for her. If there's nothing in it for the nafs, then the nafs is going to make it very difficult for you to make this decision. You have to convince the nafs there's something in it for it, or it won't help you. That's why selflessness is a very difficult concept, unless you find a way to show the nafs, no, there's something in it for us here. Example, a good reputation, popularity. There's, all right then, fine, go ahead. But if you try to do something where there's absolutely nothing in it for the nafs is going to resist you heavily. Because to the nafs, it doesn't understand why would you do this. It doesn't make any sense to the nafs. Why would you do this? There's nothing in it for us. You are expending energy. You are wasting resources. You are making someone else stronger than you. You're making them stronger. Why would you make them stronger than you? Now they're going to survive longer than you. So the nafs doesn't understand. The nafs is not evil. It's just programmed in a certain way. In Islam, we don't hate the nufus. We can't hate ourselves. We don't hate one another. This is not how it works. We just understand how it functions. So the nafs is how it looks at things. It has to be something in it for it. So when you say, well, there's something in it for you in the akhirah, the nafs doesn't understand that. The nafs does not understand delayed pleasure. Delayed pleasure. No. عصفور باليد ولا عشرة على الشجرة. This is the nafs motto. A bird in the hand, and I don't want 10 on the tree. You can keep the 10 on the tree. You can keep, what's coming next? $1 million? Keep it. Give me the $1 now. That's how the nafs looks at things, because the nafs doesn't trust anyone. Because that requires the nafs to trust others, and the nafs is not willing to do that. Why? Out of care for you, because you can be mistreated, you can be betrayed. So that's not. It's interesting, really, when you spend time and think about it. The nafs really is a toddler that you carry on the inside. That's all it is. It's just a child that you carry on the inside. A child that is extremely selfish and wants to survive and wants to be the better than everyone around it. Which takes me to the qana'at. So it has certain convictions. These convictions are not all bad. Many of these convictions are actually extremely important for survival. Without them, you wouldn't be here. We don't want to ruin all of the nafs convictions. We just want to change the reasoning behind some of them. Some of these convictions, we have to change the reasoning behind it. For example, the nafs believes in you. Your nafs believes in you, believes that you're worthy of a lot of good things. It sees that you're valuable. We don't want to take that away. We just want to take away the wiring for it. We just want to explain to the nafs it's not based on comparing ourselves to other people. It's not based on our achievements or our worship or our status. Like I told you, the pendulum. It's not. We don't want it connected to the wrong being. We don't want to derive that value from the wrong sources. We want the nafs to understand that it comes from one source. It comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want to keep the same conviction. If you get rid of that conviction, life is not possible. If someone doesn't believe that they're worthy of good things, that they're worthy of happiness, that they have value, this is a musibah. You can't help someone like that. People like that, that's a real struggle. Where does that come from? But the nafs can lose that conviction. If someone is molested as a child or beaten or raped or mistreated or grew up with hatred surrounding them, no one loved them, yes, they will grow up and their nafs does not believe that they're worthy of anything. And these people need extreme degrees of help and support and therapy, and these sessions would not be appropriate for them to begin with. Because there's a fundamental belief, conviction, that their nafs should have in order for me to be able to teach you certain things that it doesn't. So we don't actually want to change all of the nafs's convictions. We just want to change why we're doing things. So that's important. Now there are many convictions that the nafs has, and I'm not going to go through all of them this morning, or else we'll be here until tomorrow Fajr. So what we'll do is, slowly as we go along, I'll talk about them. But what I want you to understand is not all of the beliefs that the nafs has are wrong. Blacks, we need them. Some of them, we absolutely need them to survive. We just have to change a little bit of why these things are going to happen. You have levels or degrees of taming the nafs, because you don't want to break it. Our goal is not to break the nafs. You break the nafs, then you harm yourself. If you walk with a broken nafs, then you are someone who lacks the ability to feel integrity, lacks the ability to have any sort of courage or bravery. We don't want to break it. We want to tame it. And there's a very different concept. And there are different levels of taming the nafs. It starts by the lowest level is when you have no resistance at all. Whatever the nafs wants is what the nafs is going to get. You have no ability to say no. I want you to imagine a parent and a child. It's the same thing, exactly the same thing. There's almost no differences at all within this analogy. Imagine a mother or a father with a young child, a 2-year-old, right? It's not healthy for the 2-year-old to get everything they want at all times. But that's one stage where you are in submission to the nafs. You have no ability to change anything about it. The second level is when when you're fighting back, when there's a seesaw, when one day you're able to get the nafs to do what you want, and the other day you're not capable of getting it to do what you want. By the way, these stages are not generic, or not general meaning. What do I mean by that? Meaning you're not going to be at one stage for everything. For each specific behavior that you want, and for each action, you could be at one of these stages, and for another action, you're at another stage. So it's not that I'm in this stage for everything. No, you're in this stage for this specific problem, but you're in another stage for another problem. So it's something that is very specific. The second level is when you're kind of in that mujahada, munaza. You're fighting, you're disputing, you're pushing back, but it's a seesaw. It's one day I'm winning, one day I'm losing. The third level is when you do marhalat al-ikrah, when you are now capable of forcing the nafs. It hates it, but it has no choice. You're forcing it. Most people who go to work are in that level. Most people who go to their jobs, that's where they are. We're going. I know you hate it, but we're doing it anyways, because we'll starve if we don't and we have a family. Right? Because it's not a seesaw, or else you'd be fired. It's a seesaw. I mean, the next morning, you just, one day you win and you go to work, and the other day you lose, khalas, you're going to be fired. So ikrah is what we're going. We're going to get up. I know we're tired, but we're going to work. Same thing for coming to Fajr sometimes. It's the same feeling. Number 4 is when there's istislam. The nafs gives up. It gives up. This is not where you want to be. Just so you understand, this is not the highest. The nafs gives up. It stops fighting back. But it still despises this. But it's not giving you grief anymore on the topic. This is where things turn into habits. This is where something's a habit. You just do it. You do it. It doesn't mean there's no emotion involved. There's no passion involved. But you're not hating it. Ikrah is when your nafs hates it, but you're doing it anyways. Al-rida wal-istislam is the nafs gave up. It just gave up. Fine. You're going to do this. Fine. Go ahead and do it. You ignorant whatever. You're doing this. There's nothing in it for us, but go ahead and do it and waste your time and waste your energy. That's how the nafs looks at it. Well, look at this person. Out of all the people I had to be paired with, I'm paired with this guy. He's going to go and waste all of his time and his energy and his wealth on this stupid behavior, and nothing in it for us. So it's not pushing back, but in his mind, this is crazy. The 5th level is where there's hubb and itmi'nan. The nafs is at a level where now it's actually, it believes this too. It's on the same page. That your nafs is on the same page. This is what we want. Yes, we should be doing this. That's why there are things that you want to do and your nafs wants to do. All forms of play are like that. Any game that you play, you want to play and your nafs wants to play. You're like, yes, let's do this. This is amazing. This rocks. So we are in any given situation, you're in one of these 5 levels all the time. One of them. It depends on where you are. Right? You've either lost the battle with the nafs and you're doing it, you have no resistance, or you're fighting back, or now you force the nafs but you hate doing this, or you're doing it as a habit, there's no emotion anymore because you have made it clear we're going to do this anyways, or you've actually been able to tame your nafs and now it wants to do what you're doing, which is where we hope to achieve, inshallah. At least for the deeds that draw us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, deeds that we are obligated to do, we hope to arrive at that position. One more, and the final piece about the nafs this morning that I want you to know, is that there is something that comes out of it called al-damir, the conscience. So I put this up here as nomenclature. The conscience, which is what we call al-damir, or an-nafs al-lawwama, right, is the effect the ruh has on the nafs. The stronger the effect of the ruh on the nafs, the stronger the damir. The weaker the effect the ruh has on the nafs, the weaker the conscience. So in order for you to have a strong conscience, the goodness of your ruh and your fu'ad, the goodness of the aspects that come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have to be dominant upon the nafs to make it continuously remind itself. And so you don't have a bunch of nufus inside of you. It's not like you have a nafs lawama, a nafs this, and nafs. No, it's one nafs. But it has different stages inside of it. So the more the ruh is capable of influencing the nafs, the stronger your ruh, the stronger your spirit, the stronger your conscience. And as your spirit gets weaker, your conscience gets weaker. And the beginning of death is the death of the conscience, and the end of death is the spirit leaving the body. But the beginning of death is when your spirit has no influence over your nafs. And we know that because when you say the conscience is dead, this person is someone you want to stay away from. You ought to have nothing to do with this person at all. This person is figuratively dead on the inside. We use that. That's how we use the term. Aside from outside of Tazkiyah and outside of all this, we use that term. This person has a dead heart, dead on the inside. Why? Because the conscience is not there. Because the ruh has no longer is capable of influencing the nafs. Well, how do you change that? The ruh becomes stronger. The ruh can become stronger from its relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it can come stronger from a lot of other stuff. A good upbringing, a good environment, the values of compassion and empathy and love and care and kindness, all of these values, the more you feed them to someone, the stronger their spirit becomes. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ would say, people who were good in Jahiliyyah will become good in Islam. Because their spirits were powerful, they were strong. They just need to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then the source will no longer end. The source of these good things becomes infinite. You continue to take from this ma'in, from this gushing spring of good ethics and good principles till the day of judgment. Without that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your spirit slowly shrivels. And it requires a lot of maintenance to continue to have that power, or else the dhamir, the conscience, will slowly die. And that's where the concept of a nafs al-lawama falls into this. So that's about the nafs. There's a cycle that I'm going to explain to you this morning. It's very important for you to understand. This cycle dictates pretty much everything that you're going to learn about Tazkiyah. And it's made of three basic things. Made of actions, behaviors, thoughts, and emotions or feelings. Three things, right? So three things that you need to understand. Thoughts, actions, and feelings. Each and every one of them affects the other two and is affected by the other two. So it's either a virtuous cycle or a vicious cycle at all times. Anything that you think about will affect how you feel about it and affect what you do about it. Anything that you do will affect how you think about it later, will affect how you feel about it. Anything you feel affects how you think about things and what you do about them. So this cycle is happening at all times, and you're feeding things into it at all times. You're feeding things into this cycle all the time. The interesting piece, and the most important piece about this cycle, because everything you do is based on it. If you go home today and just think about this, if you want to change a feeling, then you have thoughts and actions. If you want to change your actions, you have your thoughts and feelings. You want to change your thoughts, you have your actions and feelings. This is how you're going to influence things. The problem is that you control 100% of your actions. Between 50 and 80% of your thoughts, depending on how much discipline you have, which is why we talked about reflection and contemplation at the beginning. In order for you to control thoughts, you have to learn to sit down and contemplate and think deeply about things. This is how you control your thoughts. Or else you have less control over your thoughts. And the less control over your thoughts, the less you can influence this cycle. This cycle, you have less control over the cycle, the less control you have over your thoughts. Because you can control 100% of your actions. Unless, of course, you have a disease of some sort, then that's a whole different story. Again, these sessions aren't designed to talk about certain anomalies and certain pathological struggles. You control 100% of what you do, so that's a pretty powerful piece. So your actions are going to influence what you think and what you feel pretty powerfully because you control 100% of them. Your thoughts, it varies. Some scholars say it varies between 40 and 90, that's a range of 50% difference between two people, right? It comes down to how much control you have over your thoughts, and that is going to be improved and is going to increase with your ability to contemplate and reflect and think deeply about things. Many people come to a point where they're capable of controlling more than 90% of their thoughts. They choose what they think about. They choose what thought is coming next. They don't go, they're not, it's not their, the other aspects of their existence like their nafs or their qalb that is actually dictating what they think about. They're choosing what they think about. And you choose 0% of your feelings. So this is the problem of this cycle, is that you choose 100% of one of them, the actions. The thoughts, that's where it's a little bit tricky. So that's where you can improve your control. And then you control nothing of your feelings at all. You can't look at something and say, I'm going to love that, or I'm going to hate it. No. You will either love it or hate it. It's not something that you can control directly. But if you understand this cycle, then you can influence how you feel about something. So if you don't like someone, right, if you think positively about them, and you do positive things to them, then your feelings will change. But if you don't like them, and that's going, so the negativity of the feeling is now going to try and influence the actions and the thoughts. And that's what's going to happen. It becomes a vicious cycle. You don't like them, so you think negatively about them, so you do bad things about them, which means you're going to dislike them even more, which means you're going to think negatively about them even more, which means you're going to do even worse things to them, and it keeps on going and going, and it spirals out of control. So the only way is you have to stop it. No, we're going to stop. You have to put within the wheels, you have to put a rod and stop things. No, we have a bad feeling. I'm going to change the way I think about them. I'm going to change the things I do about them. You're going to bring an external source. You're going to actually, because if you leave it, the cycle will just basically strengthen itself. The cycle is self-sufficient. The feelings will feed the actions, will feed the thoughts will feed the feelings and the action. They're feeding all each other, and this cycle never ends unless you come and stop it. I'm going to change the way I think about them. I'm going to start thinking positively. I'm going to change the good things I do. I'm going to give you a quick story. This is one of the silliest stories that exists within the history of stories. And it exists in every single culture. And I don't even think it's real, but I think once I tell you the story, you'll get the point of why I'm telling it to you. There's a lady who went to a attar. This is the Damascus version of this story. I'm sure there's a version of every culture. So she goes to the attar. The attar is the guy who sells the perfumes and he's a pharmacist. In Syria, it was interesting. You could be a doctor, and you're a doctor, a butcher, and a barber, and you're a perfume guy and a pharmacist. So I don't know how they put these things together. So the attar is there, and the lady comes and says, I want to kill my mother-in-law. She's young. She's ignorant and she's young. No one comes and says that. I want to kill my mother-in-law, but I don't want her to find out. I don't want my husband to find out because she's ruining my life with my husband. So the attar says, sure, no problem. Here, take this. And he gives her a bottle of zayt, like a lotion. And he says every single night for 30 minutes you have to massage your grandmother's or your mother-in-law's shoulders with this for 30 days, and she'll be dead. And there's no trace, and there's no one will know what happened. So she takes it. She's very thankful, and she starts massaging every day. 20 days in, she comes back in tears to the attar, and she tells him, I want the antidote. I want to reverse this. I want to reverse it. How do I reverse this? I don't want her to die. So he asked her what changed. Well, obviously, if this young lady every day is telling her mother-in-law, it looks like you're tired. You've had a long day. How about I give you a massage? And she gave her a massage every single night. You don't think she would loosen up a bit? You don't think the humanity of this lady will come out? They started to chat. After chatting for 20 days as he was doing this for her, she actually saw the humanity in her mother-in-law. She felt for her mother-in-law. She started to love her mother-in-law. She didn't want her mother-in-law to die anymore. So she goes back to the attar saying, I want the antidote. And he said, what do you think? I gave you poison? Ya jahila, you think I gave you poison? I gave you zaytun. That's all I gave you. I'm not going to get into murder with you. I'm not going to be an accomplice to murder. But you understand the idea? Yeah. She hates her. Just do something nice. 99% of the time, that will change people. Idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Push back with goodness. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. And suddenly the person who was once your enemy becomes a close friend. These are Qur'an. Everything I'm teaching are Qur'anic concepts. I don't have time to go through the evidence for everything I'm saying, or else this will never end. I have to just go through. So this cycle is the most powerful tool that you carry. Anything you want to change, in terms of your behaviors, if you're like, I want to do this, I want to be able to stop this habit or start this habit, then influence your thoughts and influence your feelings towards it, right? Influence your thoughts. Learn more about something in a positive way, and then think of it and contemplate. This will influence what you do about it. The important piece about this cycle is that your feelings are the most powerful part of it. If you are passionate about something, that will feed into the actions, into the thoughts very heavily. So it all comes down to, if your feelings are strong about something, if you have strong feelings, then your actions and your thoughts are going to be powerful as well. The question is, if I have zero control over my feelings, then what do I do? Which takes me to the third piece of this morning's dars, which is talking about the qalb. The qalb is the mixing pot. It takes from four sources. It takes from what you see, it takes from what you hear, which is what it takes from the fu'ad, basically, the consciousness. The consciousness is open, the sensory stimuli is coming through the consciousness. So it takes from what you hear, from what you see, the fu'ad in general, the consciousness, even what you smell, all that. It takes from your environment, what's surrounding you, the people, the vibe, the general norms, what is accepted, what is not accepted, and it takes from your thoughts. These are the four main sources that the qalb is receiving the input. It receives from other smaller sources, but they're not worth talking about, at least in this. Those will be talked about later. And then the qalb just mixes it all. It just mixes things, mixes. And then the output of the qalb is what you feel. The output of the qalb are your emotions. How you feel about things is dictated by the qalb. And the qalb dictates that, not because it has nothing else to do. The subconsciousness does not choose this just randomly. The subconsciousness is taking in a lot of sensory stimuli. It's taking in the environment. It's taking in how you're thinking about things. So your actions, meaning what you subject yourself to, what do you subject yourself to? If you go and subject yourself to haram visuals, or you subject yourself to haram auditory stimuli, you're going and you're listening to something haram, or looking at something haram. And if you're sitting there thinking about something haram, and you're surrounding yourself by people who are performing haram, what do you think your qalb is going to love? It's very simple. It's simple. It's the simplest thing in the world. It's like not even math. It's very simple. It's going to love it. People who love fawahish, they love fawahish because they think positively about it. They want the fahisha. They stare at fawahish. They think about fawahish. They're surrounded by people who are performing fawahish. Of course, they're going to normalize and love fahisha. And then the opposite applies as well. So you can actually change how you feel about something. It just takes time. It takes time because the qalb lags in terms of the emotions it makes. It lags. It does not. The emotion that it is making today is the accumulate. It's what you put into it for the last number of months and maybe years. Yeah. So if you decide today you're going to act differently about something or someone, you're going to think differently about something or someone, your qalb is not going to immediately put out an emotion of love towards them. It's not going to happen immediately. It's going to take time. It's going to take time before that comes out because the qalb is still filled. It's a pot that's filled with, forgive me, it's probably filled with garbage. And it has to filter that out. That garbage has to filter out first before the new batch comes in and the majority of it becomes something that's positive. So what you love and what you adore is based on whatever the qalb feels at any given moment. How it feels. Those feelings are the collective of everything that it is taking in from around it. So if you want something to be positive, then you have to start changing what you see, what you hear, what surrounds you, how you think about it. Change the input into the mixing pot. Change the input into the mixing pot. The more you change the input in the mixing pot, the better the outcome is going to be. The examples for this are infinite. There's an infinite number of examples for this. But I'll give you something that you can do, something that you can contemplate this morning. If you hate doing something, if you don't like doing something, you think about it that way, that this action is horrible. I do not want to do this action. So it's a negative thought that you're having about this one action. For example, you take the garbage out, or you have to drive your kids to school, or you have to drive a sibling to school, or you have to write an essay. If you think about it negatively, that this is a horrible thing, you keep on thinking about that all the time, and you're very disgruntled, then this negative emotion is going into the heart, and it's producing a feeling of I don't like doing this, right? So if you change the way you think about it, if you start changing your expectations, if your expectation from yourself regarding this action becomes a given, meaning you expect this from yourself. You expect, it's expected of me to do this. There's no option for me not to do this. There's no way that I don't do it. It's an expectation from me to do it. So you just change your expectations towards something. Then your thought becomes neutral about it. And when your thought becomes neutral about it, then your heart puts out an emotion that's neutral. It doesn't care anymore. And that's where you have rida. The question becomes, are you capable of enjoying something? Are you capable of taking something that's not play and then enjoying it? The answer is yes. You can turn an action that is not usually an action that is play, that is enjoyable, and make it something that is joyful if you change your expectations towards it, if you change your outlook towards it, if you change the affiliations around it. If you affiliate this action with something that you enjoy, then now you're changing the way the input into your heart, and after a while you will find joy in performing something. And this simple trick is how you can change your salah from something that you do because you have to or habitually to something that you enjoy. It doesn't happen, like I said, overnight. It takes time. Because you have to change your expectations, and you have to change your affiliations, and you have to change your associations of this behavior, pouring that into the heart over months and months and months, while the other batches are kind of filtering out until you feel differently about it. And this is how Tazkiyah works. Tazkiyah is a slow and agonizing process. It's very slow. It doesn't happen quickly. If you come into the path of Tazkiyah with the hope of an aha moment, or you're sleeping and you see the guy with the white galabi and the big long white beard, and he comes and he taps you with whatever he has, and then you wake up in the morning and you are now wali min awliya illah, you're hovering over the earth and you're moving like Superman, and if you're waiting for that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant it for you. Ha'ula al-majadhib. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they call them. 99.9% of human beings aren't granted that. And if you are granted that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefit us from, inshallah, the barakah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. The rest of us, the majority of us, we have to actually work towards these goals. We have to identify how our nufus are, where they are, and we have to start slowly changing their habits and utilizing the tools that we have to change the way we feel about something, the way we think about something, and what we do about it. Because if the goal at the end is to change your behaviors, because that's the goal, the reason that I'm putting all this here for you is because you want to change your behaviors. You want to change your behaviors, you have to start by changing the two things that you can change that can influence your behaviors. Number one, the way you think about them, and number two, the way you feel about them. And knowing that you don't directly control your feelings, you have to understand, well, how do I influence my feelings? Change the input into your qalb, into your subconsciousness. Change the input into your subconsciousness. See, everyone wants a house and a car. Why? Because all the movies that you want were not about the house and the car and the green lawn. The movies were about people that you liked, but the environment in the background that your subconsciousness was sucking in, was taking in, was a nice house and a wife and children and a cool car and a green lawn and a good job. That was the background. Your subconsciousness took that in, which is why we all want that. Yeah, but we weren't. When you watched the movie, that's not what you were watching. You were looking at the hero. You wanted to be strong, but the background is what your subconsciousness takes in, and which is what you end up wanting later on in life. You want these things. You don't even know why you want them. You don't even know why. Why do I want this? Why does this matter? Who in this room cares if they have a? Why do we care if we have a lawn in front of our homes? When have you ever spent time on your front lawn? Doing what exactly? Aside from mowing it, what do? It's a headache. There's nothing. You never sit there. You don't take selfies with it. It does not produce anything for you. But we want it because that was the background. That was what our subconsciousness took in. It absorbed it over years and years and years. You want to change that, absorb something different. Absorb something different. Change what you look at. If you're looking at things, you're not going to get over it. You're going to continue to want something that's not helpful if you continue to take the stimuli of it. Change what you look at, change what you listen to, change your environment, change your companionship, change what you think about, and then slowly your emotions will mature. Your emotions will change. And that is how you actually influence behavior. And everything I'm going to talk to you about in this session, everything is going to come back to this simple cycle. And simple concepts. They're very, very simple principles. If you understand them and you follow them, you can influence how you are in your life. And you can take back control of things. Telling me, I don't like this. I know you don't like that. No one does. No one wakes up liking to do this because this is tiring. However, you can change the way you feel about it. If you just change certain thoughts and it'll change. And that's how the Prophet ﷺ would say, "Arihna biha." Yalla, make iqamah so we can. Why? Because he made some changes. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ajma'in. Wa and with that, subhanakallah bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa